Today, we are diving into a fundamental pattern that pretty much governs our world. And honestly, it's kind of unfair. It's called the 80-20 rule. And it's one of those ideas that once you see it, you just can't unsee it.
So let me ask you this. Have you ever had one of those days? You know, your to-do list is a mile long, you work completely nonstop, but at the end of it all, you just feel like you haven't really accomplished anything important? Yeah, you are not alone. It's that classic feeling of being busy but not productive.
Well, that feeling, it's not just in your head. It actually points to this hidden, totally lopsided pattern in how the world really works. A world where effort and reward are almost never, ever distributed equally. And that brings us right to the heart of the problem, doesn't it? Overwhelm. See, we tend to operate under this false assumption that all our tasks have similar value. But the hard truth is that most of what we do contributes very, very little. And understanding that imbalance is everything. This right here is the 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto Principle. It's a surprisingly simple observation. For pretty much any outcome, roughly 80% of the results come from just 20% of the causes. And we call that critical 20% the vital few. So where did this completely game-changing idea even come from? Well, it all started with an Italian economist who noticed a pattern of inequality, not just in society, but right in his own backyard. Okay, so back in 1896, this guy, Vilfredo Pareto, he noticed that about 80% of the land in Italy was owned by just 20% of the population. But here's the kicker. He even saw it in his garden. He realized 80% of his peas came from just 20% of the pods. Wild, right? Then, decades later, a quality guru named Joseph Jurin applied it to manufacturing, and then in 1997, Richard Coates' book made it a household name. Now, this is where the rule really messes with our intuition. We're taught to think in bell curves, right? Where most things kind of cluster around the average. But reality, it often follows what's called a power law, where a tiny, tiny number of inputs create almost all of the output. In this model, the whole idea of average is basically a myth. And this pattern isn't just some abstract theory. No way. Once you know what to look for, you start seeing this imbalance absolutely everywhere. Let's just look at a few quick examples. In business, this is a classic. A small handful of your best customers, that vital 20%, they're likely responsible for about 80% of your total sales. This is exactly why businesses focus so much energy on their most loyal clients. It's true in technology too. Microsoft famously found that by fixing just the top 20% of reported bugs, they could eliminate 80% of all system errors and crashes. It's all about tackling the critical few, not every single little glitch. Or think about your health. The biggest benefits don't come from training like an elite athlete, not at all. They come from simply going from being sedentary to being moderately active. That first chunk of effort, it provides the vast majority of the health gains. And believe it or not, it even applies to our social lives. The famous Harvard study of adult development found that a few close, high-quality relationships are the single biggest predictor of our long-term happiness, way more than money or fame. Okay, so the principle is clear, but how do we actually use it? How do we make this work for us? Let's break down a really practical framework for finding that critical 20% in your own life. It's really just a simple 4-step process. First, just list everything you do in one area, say your job. Second, try to measure the impact of each of those tasks. Third, find the ones that deliver the most value. And finally, this is the most important part. Double down your focus on those high-impact activities while you actively try to minimize the rest. But it is so crucial to add some nuance here. The 80-20 rule is a really powerful mental model, for sure, but it is not a magic bullet. And honestly, it gets misunderstood a lot. So here is the single biggest myth, that the rule is an excuse for being lazy. You know, that you can get 80% of the rewards with just 20% of the effort. The truth is actually the opposite. It's about applying 100% of your effort to the right 20% of your tasks. It's about strategic focus, not laziness. And look, there are some valid criticisms. It can definitely oversimplify things. The less impactful 80% can still hold value. Think about Amazon's massive catalog of niche books. It's also retrospective, looking backward. And past patterns don't always predict the future. And maybe most importantly, sometimes you can't just focus on the 20%. I mean, you need 100% of a bridge for it to work, right? So what's the big takeaway here? It's really about shifting your whole perspective.
The real power of the 80-20 rule isn't in seeing it as some rigid mathematical law, but as a mindset, a mental model for thinking strategically about where you put your precious energy.
Ultimately, you can think of it like this. It's a call for ruthless prioritization. It's about having the clarity to identify what truly moves the needle, and then having the courage to consciously let go of all the other stuff that just keeps you busy. So, the final question is for you. When you think about your work, your health, your relationships, what is that one thing in your vital 20% that deserves all of your attention starting right now?